What's up, everyone? Welcome to my corner of the internet. I'm your host, Ryan Kramer, and this is Crossover Commerce, presented by PingPong Payments, the leading global payments provider helping sellers keep more of their hard-earned money. What is up, Internet? I'm your host, Ryan Kramer, and welcome to another episode of Crossover Commerce presented by PingPong Payments, episode 87, Keys to Amazon Listings that Rank and Sell. Thanks for watching us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, as well as if you're listening to this later on for downloading us on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you are downloading podcasts. I'm going to be there. Just go ahead and search for Crossover Commerce with Ryan Kramer, and that's where you'll find me. So thank you for listening or watching either way. But do me a favor right now, if you're watching this live, go ahead and follow, like, and share this episode on social media so that this can be shared with network and as many people as possible. And the beauty about going live with these episodes is that you can actually ask your questions and we will see those. So if you have a question about myself or guests or a topic we're covering, go ahead and submit those on social media, again, on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. We'll be able to see those and answer those questions. And if later on you happen to catch us, you're like, darn, I didn't catch that live. Well, guess what? If you tag us as well, we will be able to answer those questions later on. So go ahead and tell us where you're listening from. Go ahead and let us know your questions ahead of time, and we'll make sure we get to that. But high level, we are going to be talking about keys to listings that rank and sell. But if you haven't watched this episode before or any of our episodes, I'm the host and I go live about 4 to 5 times per week. So that's tons of content that's coming your way. If you're on Amazon or if you're trying to grow your business on either Amazon or different marketplaces, US or around the world, no matter where you're located, we're going to make sure we get you information that's going to apply to you directly. So you don't want to miss an episode. Go ahead and like us on social media. Like I said before, follow PingPong Payments, follow Ryan Kramer, myself on social media, again, on Clubhouse, on Instagram, wherever your social media you're using, I'm going to be there. So make sure you follow us and my guest as well. But about my guest today, he started selling on Amazon in 2012 and hit 7 figures in sales within the first year of starting his business. Before starting on Amazon, he actually worked for the US government and aerospace industry. Awesome. And he created a 7-figure mobile app software company. But later on in 2015, he started his first Amazon-related SaaS company to get sellers reviews. And through his podcast, coaching, and software, he has helped thousands of Amazon sellers grow their businesses. He has been an entrepreneur since the age of 19 and started and run multiple 7-figure businesses. And he's created and now runs SaaS software called RebateJet, a suite of tools dedicated to helping Amazon sellers scale their businesses with SEO and marketing, and also going to be helping out with virtual assistants. We're going to cover a little bit of everything, but I want to welcome to our show, Andy Arnott of Seller SEO. Andy, welcome to Crossover Commerce. How are you?
What's up? Good. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So you are located in Idaho, which I've never had a guest from Idaho. So I'm going to put like a little pin in Idaho. But like, so it's you're wearing a San Francisco hat. Like, I don't know too much about your background, and for people who are new to the show or don't know who you are specifically, like, give me a quick who is Andy Arnott and like how did he get into e-commerce?
Yeah, so that's kind of a long story because I'm 43. So you know, I was always into computers. You know, like was building computers super early on. You know, remember Amazon when it was like mostly a text-based website. You know, when I was in high school. So like I remember the super early beginnings of the internet. And then when I went to college, I actually spun up one of my first SaaS companies ever. It was called ISP Spider. And what it would do is you'd put in your address and then it would tell you what broadband was available in your address. And I would get affiliate commissions for that. And then this whole chatbot thing, I always laughed because I was doing chatbots when I was 19. There was a software, which if you're, you know, younger than me, you probably don't know. It's called ICQ. Back then it was like what everybody was using for their messenger. And we had bots that would go out and promote stuff. Back then it like, you know, technically not illegal, a little, you know, a little spammy, but you know, it is what it is.
Sure.
And then, you know, fast forward, like you said in my intro, you know, started building some Android apps before anybody really even knew what Android was. You know, iPhone was kind of the dominant player, but I kind of saw opportunity there to be an early mover. actually, scaled. We had like 30 apps. Just like Amazon, though, Google, is hardcore about enforcing rules and things like that. And we had built a web wrapper. If you're a geek, you know what that is. It's the short of it is it wraps a web page to make it look like an app. Because on the Android platform, there was no there was an app that Google spun up that was trying to compete with Twitter, and they didn't have a web app, so I wrapped the app. Anyway, they took down the entire account, so we were going from netting a serious amount of money every day to zero in one day. Appealed it. Google said tough luck. It was the stupidest thing ever. I had built that super early on and didn't even remember that I built that. Honestly, it was more of like a, hey, here's something to help you out, Google, since you can't even do it yourself. Fast forward to 2012. That's when my first son was born. My wife didn't want to go to work anymore. So the Amazon business I actually had started for her to, try to bring in some extra money. And we just, back then, it was so much easier to launch product. You could literally, put products up, and the more products you put up, the more money you would make. I wish I knew back then what I know now in terms of scaling operations, systems, all the things that I know now, because, that could have been an even bigger business. We still run the Amazon business today, but it's honestly like I just, check in on the account a couple hours a day, and it's just super long tail, a lot of older products because we've been in the game for so long. Actually kind of phasing it out, might sell it off, not sure, but I still want to be in the know in terms of, the struggles that the sellers have. I think a lot of people who offer software and services aren't still sellers. So they really get away from the pain points that's, what's currently going on Amazon. Sure. So yeah, I mean, that's the short of it. The federal government thing, I did a lot of moonlighting while I was working. I was an air traffic controller for 13 years. Decided I could not handle that job anymore. So, and my Amazon business was making great money. So I stepped away in 2015 and been an entrepreneur ever since.
That's amazing, man. So you dabbled in, I hear it dabbling in a little bit of everything. So how does that allow you to scale and grow? It's not just you, right? Like you have a team around you. What's it like for people who are trying to like elevate themselves like forward? Is it assistants? Is it like smart-minded people? Is it partners? Like for you, how do you give advice in terms of like, hey, this is the smart way to like scale your quote unquote business or like your efforts and so on and so forth?
I mean, one of the things that I learned a lot later on in life, which once again, if I knew a lot of this stuff earlier in life, it would have been huge. I mean, business systems and processes are huge. If you don't start studying that now, by the time you need to scale and need to have that stuff in place, it's going to be too late. So I would say start early on that. One of my favorite books in the world that can help you get started with systems is Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz. One of my favorites. He's also got another one. Finances is another big one. Running a company, if you don't know your bottom line, you're going to fail. So Mike Michalowicz also has another one called Profit First. And there's an offshoot of that book for e-commerce sellers specifically. Those are some things that are homework for anybody who's looking at scaling their Amazon business, getting into Amazon e-commerce. I mean, it universally translates to any business, but those are some of the things that you should really look into. Of course, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it should be one of your first books you ever read. Richest Man in Babylon. I'm naming all this stuff off because a lot of people go into these businesses thinking they're just going to like put a product online and, get rich quick. Right before this, I actually just drove through to get a coffee at Dutch Brothers. And, the kid at the thing was like, oh, I've heard about this Amazon thing. I'm going to jump on that and make some money. I was like, oh, I suggest you research it a lot. It's getting harder every single month, not year, every single month. It's getting harder to sell on Amazon with all these new restrictions, all these, it's getting really, really difficult. So I don't want to discourage people, but I'm also not one of those people who's going to come on here and tell you it's an easy thing. You're going to make a ton of money super early on. Like it's a grind. Honestly, I'm starting to get a lot sick of a lot of the things that you have to deal with on Amazon. But there's still huge opportunity there if you get all these things nailed down early on.
So with that being said, so you've been around, I call this like time period. Like I do things in time periods because a lot of it was like FBA really became a thing in 2015, maybe late 2014. That's when I hear a lot of like sellers like, this is my pivot, or this is when I jumped on, or so on and so forth. You've been around a little bit longer than that. You've seen the spectrum. And when you're telling people like this kid at the coffee shop, he's like, oh yeah, I heard about the thing. I heard you can make money, like, and just sit on a beach and like blah, 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 like just print money or something. Not true. It's more hard work. It's more like actually a full-time job. What is that transition like for you as you're telling people, you're consulting with people of this is now not just a throw products and, cash in. It's now you're building brands, you're building businesses, you're building processes. Has that allowed you to grow your entrepreneur like mindset as well, because you've been able to play around for so long and seen the evolution almost from like inception to like today?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that that a lot of people don't realize is, a lot of the, not only systems, but tools to tie into those systems, right? Like Slack and some of these things where, if you can't put an action behind the plan, then it's never going to happen. Right. So, yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've grown a lot, especially with, doing some personal development stuff. One of my current favorite books, before we started the episode, we were talking about how I have, my iron and there's so many irons in the fire. One of my big things right now is to really try to focus down on the things I'm doing. So the one thing is the book that, I keep rereading, because I'm one of those guys who, like I said, I'm a perpetual entrepreneur, always have new ideas, always have, stuff going on that's, that I think I should jump on, because, I am really good at predicting and kind of seeing where markets and software and all this stuff is going. But then lately I've had to really rein myself back in and say, you know what, like I really need to double down and concentrate on the business. I mean, that's the other huge piece of advice I can give people in terms of, some business basics is, just stay really focused. People expect a result in 1 year, but if you look at a lot of companies, they don't really gain traction until year 5 or even 10. That time frame will come down as you get more into knowing the basics of business, knowing systems, all these other things that help you scale more quickly. But to me, that's an essential.
So when I titled this, I said, keys to ranking, and scaling and so on and so forth. And that's the number one key, right? Is you have to time it right. You also have to have the right processes in place. Since you've been around so long, for context, how did people used to rank back then, and now what's the evolution been like? So now that you have to change with the times, and now what you're touting, ranking a product and really standing out on Amazon.
Right. So before it was very much, where, back then it would be, you could, like I said, like, almost throw things up and use PPC and things like that and get ranked fairly easily. Then we kind of transitioned into, the kind of the viral launch years where I had some competing launch services during those times as well, where, you would give a discount, get reviews, then Amazon, of course, shut that down. And now the evolution really has come to the point where, unless you have a lot of, either a marketing team or a good knowledge of marketing, it's going to be really, really hard on Amazon. Amazon's gotten really good at seeing people trying to bend the rules in terms of ranking and things like that. So, right now it's all about, diverse traffic, right? So you're talking, rebates, discounts, Google traffic, Facebook traffic, influencers. I mean, what I tell everyone is when you launch on Amazon, number one, you need a launch plan. A lot of people don't even know what that is or think about that. You have to have influencers locked down. You have to have all this diverse traffic, because to Amazon, that will look the most natural, and that's how you're going to get ranked. These days, unless you have something super unique, like your own invention, or, I say something very visually appealing, it's going to be really, really hard for you to get noticed. If you're selling office paper, printer paper on Amazon, like good luck, right. If you don't have a marketing plan in place, or if you're selling, water bottles or, any of these other very common products, it's going to be really, really hard to gain traction on Amazon.
So with that being said, what's the best way for you to do? Like you said, there's a mix of everything. Like that mix is it skewed one way or another? Like, how does Amazon reward traffic? higher in some capacities versus others? Like for people that's confusing and they don't know, like, hey, like I thought it was going to be as simple as like listing my product and maybe like telling my friends and family to, hey, go buy this product, and maybe I'll do some giveaways and stuff like that. Like, what's the natural evolution? Because Amazon wants products to be successful, right? That helps sales and whatnot grow. What are those kind of tactics?
Well, so of course Amazon won't tell you, right? Because they don't want people to know, the kind of the tricks of the trade. There's a lot of people doing search, find, buy, and things like that. That is a technique that works, but once again, that's one of those gray areas where how long is Amazon going to be okay with that, right? Is that a manipulation? To me, I mean, like, we have our rebate company, and a lot of people think that like rebates are this like horrible thing. What people don't realize is rebates have been used for ages. It's not the rebates that Amazon's concerned about. It's the quote unquote rank manipulation, right? So if you're using rebates along with these special URLs and things like that, then you possibly could get into trouble. To me, the safer, more effective way of doing things is to combine those rebates with things like discounts, Amazon traffic, or PPC traffic, Google traffic. And in terms of, you said specifics. So, Amazon doesn't tell you which one ranks better, but what we've seen is, visual products, things like that work really well on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, visual platforms, right? But once again, if you're selling office paper, then Google would be the place you would want to go for that search traffic. But even for me, if I'm consulting somebody or I'm launching myself, once again, I go diverse. I try to see, what's going to gain traction on that product, and then maybe scale back the advertising a little bit on the stuff that's not working, and then scale up on the stuff that is working.
Are people? There's probably an investment amount that you have to do, like with all these ads and whatnot. Is there an amount that it's going to depend product to product, of course. Is there a nice base amount that you would say, like, obviously there's an investment in product itself, but like that being said, how much are you telling people minimum you have to spend this to healthily launch a product? Is there an amount you always tell, or it really just depends?
It really depends, but I mean, honestly, like with the climate the way it is now on Amazon, I mean, if you have anything that is even remotely competitive, I would say a base is $2,000. I would say a base of $2,000, and that's not counting like if you're doing rebates, the cost of the rebates on top of that, right? So this marketing budget in general, I would say $2,000, at a minimum. But once again, like I said, there's a lot of factors. So, if you've been really smart about building your brand before in terms of like maybe Facebook groups or email lists or ManyChat lists, things like that, of course, that's going to be huge, right? Because if you can combine that with your marketing, you're going to have a much better effect in terms of getting that, that a lot of traffic and sales in that first month, which is the honeymoon period, which if people don't know what that is, it's Amazon, of course, will never admit to this, but, the first month you get, a lot more traction in terms of the algorithm from Amazon. They're trying to kind of push your product to see, they're dipping their toes in the water going, hey, is this going to be something that's going to work really well for us or not? So that's when you really need to push hard.
What about, for people, even the step before if they're like new to the space and they're like, how do I even build out like a Facebook group or things like that? Like that to me, like, people want to just create the product and have it in the inventory, like at Amazon, they're ready to go. And they're like, oh shoot, like I forgot to do all these other steps. Like, how does the timeline work out? How do like these other steps come into place? You said, do this first. I've actually never heard people say, do the legwork first, then get the product there. Is this in conjunction when you're developing product ready to go?
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah. So like, if you have a niche, right? So say you're selling camping stuff, right? So, maybe you start, even if it's a micro group, where you're just getting, like, we're in Idaho here, and people are super into their outdoors, right? So even if I'm somebody, starting a camping company in Idaho here, I would start, Idaho camping spots or whatever. All you have to do is think about your audience and what they would be into, and then just start posting content. Start posting like, hey, I found this super awesome hiking trail, in this town, and here's how you get to it. Or, hey, I took a video of me going up this trail, or here's this awesome hot spring, or, here's an awesome camp spot that's right on, right next to the river. In other words, you're building this, even if it's just this micro audience, so that you build this this trust with even that small audience. So when you do launch, you go and say, hey guys, you know, in all these, just not only that, but you'll get feedback, right? You'll get feedback from people on, you know, what they're doing. You could even ask questions like, you know, hey, we're developing a tent. Like, what are some of the things that you've noticed that you hate about your tent, right? And then you get feedback. So, I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can kind of pre-build that audience.
So doing that like work, the easiest ways to kind of build out this group is what, Facebook, you think, or is there one that's really emerging quicker? Like, is that Clubhouse, or is that these other platforms that are easier to do? Or
so once again, you know, it's one of those things where you kind of have to pick a platform that you think is going to resonate the most with your audience, you know. So generally, though, Facebook groups are the most widely accepted. You know, that's the easiest way to get kind of a following the quickest. So, you know, in my example, I would probably do the Facebook group. But then also you're talking, you know, TikTok and Instagram. You know, camping is a very visual activity because you're outside. You're probably taking videos. You're probably, you know, doing all these different things. So, you know, having that content that you know is going to be completely in line with what your audience is going to want to see, you know, that's going to resonate with them, and they're probably going to want to see more.
I agree with all of that. I think a lot of people are just like, if they're scared to do that, like the top components I would tell people, and this is my opinion, maybe you can add on to this, is first come education, be a content leader in what you're either going to be selling or the industry you're selling in. And then obviously like visual cues of like your product in space of lifestyle imagery or actually being used, or, hey, getting in the hands of influencers in that space. How are, like, is there maybe other things that we might be missing in like these quick little ways to start filling it out and say like, hey, this is my brand, this is what we're doing? And
yeah, no, I think your example is really good. The other thing to do really is, you know, if you know, say you have an early prototype or you have some samples of your product too, I mean, go and you know, record somebody like using it, or, you know, getting feedback on using it. You know, pretty much any content that's going to resonate with them. And it doesn't even need to be your own content, right? You could be looking up, you know, the local news or local magazine, or, you know, local people who are also talking about this, blogging about this, things like that, posting that content as well, maybe partnering with them. Like you said, you can actually find influencers before you even launch to kind of push your product. So to me, you know, you talked about like, you know, people don't have a plan. You know, I always say, like, once you have an order into the manufacturer, your listing should already be on Amazon. It shouldn't be live, but it should be already up on Amazon, you know, optimized as best that you can. You know, probably not with photos, but you want that up. You actually want your PVC to be spun up to, you know, go with that. You want to pre-plan all of this stuff so that the second that your inventory hits Amazon, you're ready to just turn switches on and get that stuff live, right? Because if you try to plan for it after the fact, that's when you're going to have a really hard time, because that 1 month window is going to take away really quickly.
So that starts exactly when you go live, correct? Like for people who are like, hey, I'm afraid if I even put it on there and it's just like a draft, Amazon's going to index it. They're going to like ping it and basically say, hey, this is going to, you know, go in this category, and maybe we'll push it out.
Yeah, so it will actually go live if you, number one, put any type of inventory. But since inventory shows 0 on an FBA listing, until inventory gets there, you don't have to worry about that. But if you're afraid of that, there's actually a field on the products in the Seller Central dashboard that gives you a launch date that you can actually put in that will tell it not to put the listing live until the product is ready. So, and you can even push that out like 3 months just to be sure, you know, and then as soon as it gets there, you can turn it live. So, you know, that's one of the things that a lot of people miss on.
Is there a good, maybe I've never asked this question before, is there a good day of the week to launch a product?
So there's a lot of debate on that. You know, if you look at, what I would do is look at a lot of the big companies and things like that. It seems like Tuesdays, a lot of people will do Tuesdays as a launch day. I'm not exactly sure. If you're a current seller, of course, you can go into your analytics or your orders and see, you know, maybe what, you know, in your niche, what days are the most popular. You know, that could be an option. But if you're brand new, you've never, you know, you're not even live yet, then, you know, definitely research your niche and, you know, do some Google searching in terms of finding, you know, what resonates with that niche. But like I said, a lot of times Tuesday seems to come up a lot. I don't have any data to back it though. So
no, exactly. So is there, on the flip side, is there a bad time to do it? Like,
not on the weekend. I would not. I would try not to launch on like Saturday or Sunday.
or is there even a time of year, even like I would say like Q3 or Q4? I mean, like this is my fear when a lot of people think about, oh, when's a good time of year launching when you don't have a grasp on your audience yet, because Q3 and Q4 can, or obviously if you're seasonal, that's kind of a one-off. You might have a perceived notion of like, hey, maybe it sells too quick and you don't have inventory. You can't turn it around because Chinese New Year's right around the corner.
Yeah.
So
I would say
stuff like that.
I would say the worst time to launch would probably be the first couple of weeks after the holidays, right? So like, probably the last week in December and the first week or two in January. To me, like you said, there's a lot of hurdles there in terms of, getting inventory, people, a lot of people at that time are kind of like, overshopped at that point. They've done the Christmas,
right.
like, I've spent my money, I'm done. There's of course caveats to that. There's people who get gift cards and things like that. So like the first few days after Christmas might be okay. But like you mentioned, I think probably the best time to launch, if you could pick, would be probably Q3, right? Because then you get the product out, you get to test it just as, end of Q3, you get to test it and be able to go back and actually get product for Q4 if it actually is something that's going to resonate and sell a lot.
Exactly. And yeah, you don't want to run out of inventory. That's the worst case scenario. It's like you said, building a rocket ship and then running out of fuel as it's continued to momentum up, and you don't want to miss out on that all that hard work and money that you put into it. So that being said, like today, we talked about like building your audience, which is great. When it comes to your listing in itself, what are the main factors that Amazon's going to look at if you rank them, in terms of saying that's a successful product and that we're going to move it up naturally because it has an algorithm. Everyone knows that Amazon has algorithms. What are the things that it's highly weighing and putting more, weight in terms of like, is it the listing? Is it the imagery that's going to continue to move it up the list and keep it there and have no one else like subvert you?
Yeah, absolutely. So imagery, of course, is the most important, right? Because that's what's going to actually make people click into your listing. The title, the bullet points, A+ content, if you have access to that, of course, all of those incremental steps will make your listing better, will help people convert. Video is huge. If you're not doing video, everybody else is. Even video ads, a lot of people are doing video ads still, which is huge, especially, once again, if you have a visually appealing product, right? I always like to use this example, like printer paper. You could do a video ad for that, but it's going to be pretty rare that somebody's going to actually stop to watch that video unless you're like Dollar Shave Club and you figured out something really funny. But if you're selling a bikini, then that's when the video ad's a home run, right? That's going to be visually appealing. People will stop scrolling to watch that. So those are extremely important. But the other huge big factor, that probably the biggest mistake that I see most sellers making in terms of their listing itself, is filling out the extra fields, right? Whether it's size, color, if it's not a variation, still filling in those fields. What type of material is it? What is it compatible with? All these additional fields. So in your Seller Central dashboard, it's the last tab. That's kind of like, I think it's like more whatever that last tab is. People ignore that last tab because it's not required, right? But what people don't realize is when you do a search on Amazon, there's all these filters that show up on the left side, right? Mm-hmm. If people start drilling down and filtering, then your product's going to disappear if you don't have those fields completely filled in. So, that's another, huge thing that a lot of people don't know. And you should launch with those fields, not like, oh, I'll get to it someday. That listing will be complete when you launch.
That's a definitely a great key and takeaway. I don't think we've heard too many people. It's like put in the extra work, like obviously ahead of time, to make sure if people are like, hey, I need my workbench to fit this space, like they need a dimension or a material. That makes complete sense to me. When we've seen statistics in terms of like how social media is impacting people's keywords that they're using, in terms of like, for example, the most recent one is the TikTok leggings. I don't know if you've seen this article floating around. It's just a natural product that's being featured on TikTok where someone's saying, hey, it's on Amazon. It's not specific branded. It's not paid content. It's nothing. It's just a creator creating content, and people are it was the number 50 unique search term, and it was TikTok leggings. So it was like it was like Facebook something, or you put social media and then it's the product. Are you helping people? Are you yourself as a seller putting in any sort of like content that you're watching trends on, like, hey, someone did like dancing shoes or like apparel or any sort of like weird product that might loosely tie to yours, and like bidding on that?
Not really. The thing is so, I mean, when it comes to that type of content, right, that's viral content and nobody can really predict that, right? So, I mean, you can, and I've tried this before, I've tried like, looking at stuff that's trending on like Twitter or TikTok, and then trying to either do Google ads or, kind of craft my thing for a few days to try to like catch that. So far, that's not been an effective strategy. Not to say that, if you come up with one, it won't work. I just personally haven't seen anything work too well on that. The other point I want to make is, one of the things you really have to think about is, number one is, we talked about, knowing where your audience is, right? And trying to do too many, if you half-ass like 10 social networks, you're never going to get traction, right? So like, I got banned off of Facebook. I'm getting good. I'm really good at getting banned. I must. I was
gonna say, man, like, are we gonna like? Is my podcast gonna be shut down after this?
Right? Yeah. No. I guess I'm. Kind of like what was the Steve Jobs like? Here's to the rebels. Like, I'm one of those people who always is turning dials, and I guess sometimes it gets me in trouble. But I've been banned from Facebook probably twice. And for no explanation at all. So I don't know, why, but, during that time I started really digging into LinkedIn, right? So LinkedIn is now the platform that I consider my main platform. That's where I put a lot of time, and effort into that. I mean, I still, of course, do Facebook and some of these other things, but when it comes down to where I put my energy and my time, it goes into LinkedIn. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of the things is, LinkedIn, I think, is one of the most underutilized platforms in terms of social. Everybody's trying to chase this TikTok demographic, but guess what? 19-year-olds, 16-year-olds, they don't have money. I mean, they got to go to daddy or mommy usually to get that money, right? Whereas
they're an influencer making all this ad money.
Exactly. But, if you go onto LinkedIn, these are professionals for the most part, have jobs, you can connect with a lot of executives, with a lot of people. I think that's where I originally connected with you. I mean, that's where, I feel like in the customer that I'm looking for as a software provider, as somebody who's looking for, entrepreneurs, business people, that's where my target is, right? So it makes sense for me to hang out there, to put the most energy into that platform.
So that being said, what kind of content are you putting out so that eventually leads to either your listing on Amazon or your own like branded site?
Yeah, well, so in terms of Amazon, like, I'm not doing too much, for Amazon, but in terms of being a service provider, like I said, that's where I'm putting a lot of my content. In terms of, software, how-tos, all those kinds of things, is building that audience. But that does translate to, just because these people are on a working platform doesn't mean that during the weekends they don't like to go kayaking, or they don't, the thing is, going back to the example of like, if you're trying to launch a swimwear company, building your audience on, TikTok or Facebook or something like that, but then cross-posting that content to LinkedIn and all these other places, which, there's a lot of tools that help you do that, like Buffer and, a bunch of different things. The one thing, this is the thing that a lot of people, like you said earlier on, that people are scared to put content out, right? I remember before I started podcasting, before I started doing all this stuff, I was terrified even to be in front of the camera. I'm a terrible public speaker. I get, super nerves when I get up on stage and have to talk. Even if it's in a smaller crowd of people, I'm getting much better at that. But the way I got over that was I made a deal with myself that I would go live for 30 days, every day. Excuse me. And even if I didn't really have much to talk about, just to get like to flex that muscle, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what I think a lot of people should do, is to just, go live and talk about, a lot of people love journey stories, right? Like, if you're building a brand, talk about it. Talk about your struggles. Talk about like, hey, I'm building this camping brand. I took my prototype out, my tent out to have somebody test it. He said it was crap, and it sucks. People want to know the real you. They want to know the brand story. They want to when you get those people involved in what you're doing, then they're your cheerleaders, right? And then you have this kind of, friends and family and your social following who are really rooting you on. So
how are you measuring that? Like your success in that regards? Is it like engagement, or is it kind of like comments, or is it following? Like, how are you measuring that to like see some sort of like incremental growth?
Well, I mean, you honestly can't really measure that until you launch, right? So, I mean, really, the thing that you want to see is, of course, on social would be, interactions, making sure you're answering people's questions, you're replying to them, and then also just building the audience, right? Building that audience, maybe giving away, maybe even pre-selling. You could almost do like a mini Kickstarter in terms of like, hey, I need 100 people to review, or not to review, but to review in terms of give me feedback about my product. Give me your email address. We'll let you know when you launch. Give it away for a discount or free, or however that you would have to figure out the numbers on that. But you can also build incentives into those social groups so that when you do launch, people are a lot more involved.
Have you ever launched a product on Kickstarter, by the way?
I never have. I'm actually looking into it though, because we have a product that actually a last guest on our podcast was all about that. So it's a super interesting platform. I really think that investing in that platform is going to pay dividends in terms of like talk about the best test case scenario ever, right? You get to launch a product with no money. Well, I shouldn't say no money. You have development costs, CAD costs, things like that, prototyping. But for very little money, rather than, spending like we looked at this product that I'm talking about that we're launching hopefully in the next year or two, and just like the molding, the tooling, all the stuff, we're talking like 50 grand, right? That's a big investment to put out to not prove the concept, right? Whereas I can go to a local machine shop here, get it machined, probably 10-ish grand total out the door. I get to put it on Indiegogo, Kickstarter. I get to say, hey, this is what we're selling. This is the price point. And if you don't hit your goal, then you walk away, or you figure out how to iterate, or you get feedback from people. So I actually love that, that way of launching.
Is it by chance Mina or Samer Brax by chance?
It was not Mina or Samer.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I can't remember his name. I'd have to go back.
That's okay. It's like the reason I brought that up is because they're doing.
It's the company's Rocket Boom. They're called Rocket Boom.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to look in them. But in terms of what they're doing, also something similar where they have money, but once you get funded, you get like Kickstarter has always been this nuance to me. Obviously, it's not always guaranteed. No matter how quickly you fund it, like it's a good thing because then you can feature that on either like your A+ content, like, hey, funded on Kickstarter. It's almost like taking social proof, knowing that, like you said, concept is going to work. People would buy it, but at a discount. Then this is the cool thing because Amazon's now going away with like early review program, all this other stuff that's been helpful in the past is you can capture people's addresses. So, their social profile, you can build a lookalike audience on social media. And then on top of that, you obviously have people who are willing to be social proof of, hey, it's not just concept. It's, they're going to be your ambassadors moving forward. So it's that list that you can obviously tap into, say like, hey, they can come back to you. Hey, we're now on Amazon. Hey, now we're on our own website, all this other fun stuff. So I agree with you. I think that's something that hasn't been utilized before to launching products or just even testing, because if you don't reach your goal, then you don't reach your goal. But then once you do get to that goal or even surpass it, then you're like, oh shit, I have something that actually has raised 6 figures, 7 figures, whatever that looks like, 6 figures probably. And people want this in its pre-orders to something that will eventually arrive, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about it too, I mean, depending on the products, I mean, the product we're building is pretty intricate and it's, like metal, it's machined, there's all kinds of parts, but you could also go a lot more simple, right? Like if you've come up with like a new, like super innovative broom handle or, something that, that cost could be cut drastically, right? You always see in all these Facebook groups and things like, oh, how much do I need to launch a private label product? And I always laugh when I read that because it can vary so much. But using the Kickstarter or the Indiegogo model, I mean, really, your MVP, minimum viable product, could be really, really simple and inexpensive. And really, the only kind of payment that you're making is your time and effort to get it set up. I mean, you can outsource a lot of the graphics and video and a lot of the content that needs to be around on that Kickstarter or Indiegogo page. So really your investment is pretty small. And then that proof of concept is kind of, a free, frees you from spending like, 40 or 50 grand on that idea.
Well, and then also like even in that, it's like 15% maybe commission or like 10, I forget what it is depending on the product. But a lot of the stuff in there was like toys and games. Like I just went there and browsed. It's like what's launching, what's new and hot, like all this other stuff. And it was anywhere from like home and gift garden or home and kitchen, which is a big hot topic in Amazon, to games and like new kind of like weird, I say like home decor, stuff like that. So all stuff that sells well on Amazon, but like it's a little out there in terms of like no one's actually searching for like metal ball magnet lamp or something stupid like that. But then, yeah, how do you like fund that and kind of get it like that momentum going? So like adding fuel to the fire. Is there other like when people are like come to you and they go, hey, I heard about this way of, I'm not sure if it's like you guys tout rebates. There's always this gray area of like, how do I get people to like review, rank, or because with more reviews come more like buys and, kind of pushes up ranking. How do you guys like either toe the line, or how do you make sure that the line is pretty clear for either your clients or yourself that, hey, we will not go past this line because Amazon will take you down quicker than anything? Like, what are the things you have to look out for?
Well, I mean, so some of the things that, I mean, and this has kind of been true throughout, the mantra of Amazon is, is that they're looking at intent, right? If it's obvious that you're cheating, right? Like if you're, back in the day, it was like, if you're giving away 100% off coupons a day, they're probably going to balk at that, right? But if you're using a rebate, in along with, Google ads and all these other things, then that's where it's natural, right? That's where Amazon goes, okay, rebates is just one of the cogs in this whole thing that, that is moving in to promote the product, right? So between the rebates, the influencers, all these things, that's why we say diverse traffic, especially when you're using things like rebates, is really important because, Amazon is looking for people, quote unquote, cheating and really, trying to cheat the system. So many sellers are using rebates. So many sellers are using promotions. Whenever I see people being like, oh, you're going to get banned and things like that, we personally have not had a single client on our platform reach that any issues. Usually when you hear about some other platforms, I'm not going to call them out. I've seen other platforms being blamed for getting, but when you actually say, hey, post a letter from Amazon, it's like, no, they like paid somebody in India to like upvote something, or, there's this like little piece that wasn't actually included in the rebate service or that process. So really, I mean, go with your gut in terms of like, if you feel like it's cheating, it probably is, right? But if you're doing a rebate along with all this other stuff and you're doing a reasonable amount of rebates, maybe you do 3 to first day, 5 the second day, maybe you scale that up. I mean, that's where, the magic really happens in terms of all this natural looking traffic.
What has been the most creative way to launch a product that you've seen in the years you've been doing this?
Creative way. That's a good question. So a lot of people will. I don't know if this is creative, but I think this is a really good way to launch that tons of people don't use. Is to instead, a lot of people will get an influencer, right? And they'll say, "Hey, go to Amazon to get this product," right? But rather than doing that, build like even a ClickFunnels page or WordPress, like some basic, page on your website. If you don't have a website, you need to get one. These days, if you don't have a brand,
first step, buy a website.
Get some branding going. But some type of landing page, even if it's like a ClickFunnels page or something like that, where you tell the influencer to go to this page to get the product. Then you collect some information first, right? Because if you send them off to Amazon, you're not going to get anything. So when they come to your page, you pixel them, you get their email address, and then you say, hey, put your email address. We're going to send you 70% off coupon, or 50% off. We shouldn't go 70, 50% off coupon, or we're going to, send you the link to the rebate, something like that, or an ebook on, the best hiking trails in Idaho, whatever the thing is. Give them a carrot so that they give you, some of their information, so that you can actually go back to them in the future and remarket to them.
Gotcha. Are you guys looking at, what are other like social media? Like I hear a lot of people are trying to drive traffic from Pinterest to like Amazon, like almost 2-step, or even just because it's a place where people find ideas. A lot of people have touted, hey, if you're putting your product listing or even listings or just like your content thought leadership pieces on Pinterest, people are going to still search for that kind of stuff and find a way to either find it through your Shopify store or Amazon listing. Is that a successful way to drive sales even?
Yeah, I mean, Pinterest is one of those, once again, a super underutilized platforms, right? Because like you said, a lot of people are going to Pinterest with intent to buy, right? And it's a visual search platform. So as long as you have really, really good graphics and a really good pin, that you could easily get a lot of organic reach there, a lot more than a lot of these other platforms. TikTok is all the rage. That's where everybody keeps talking about that. But if you get creative, you can build an audience there. I'm not saying that at all. But like I said, once again, I'm not sure I trust in that consumer base yet in terms of buying power, right? So that's kind of on the back burner for me in terms of dabbling in that. But the biggest mistake with Pinterest, right, is that people will use like the pin button and then just like throw the link up and like super quick, like don't put any thought into it, right? Where if you're going to put up a pin, you should make it be just like your Amazon listing, making sure that listing is full of keywords that represent what you're trying to sell, right? So if you're selling that bikini, like two-piece, sizes, colors, anything that is going to catch those searches. So I mean, that's another thing. Once again, it's where you put your energy. Don't spread yourself too thin on all these different platforms. Pick one, find one that works, and then use it. A lot of people don't know Amazon now is a way to track sales from other channels called Amazon Attribution. It is a hot mess. So I'm not
to say the least. Yeah,
I'm not real confident in the data that you get from that, but you can spin up some of those links to at least get a little bit of data to try to early on gauge and see what's working and what's not working.
That's awesome. And we actually had, I believe, a friend or colleague, I should say, Rob Stanley. He actually asked when we were talking about influencers. He might have missed this earlier. Is there too many influencers when you're launching a product that you can utilize, or is there a good amount? Like you said, you don't want everything to be driven from one source.
Yeah,
so if everyone at Facebook saying, "Hey, everyone go to Amazon at once," and you got 10 influencers. I don't know if that is too much or.
Well, no, I don't think 10 would be too much. But I mean, let's go into influencers themselves. So a lot of people will go for the home run in influencers, right? Spend a ton of money and try to get Kim Kardashian or some ridiculous, expensive person.
Now billionaire, by the way,
right, exactly.
Newly minted billionaire. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Wow. So instead of, hey, don't laugh too much.
That's okay. Good for her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I know, I wish I looked that good, man. Damn it.
I know.
Anyway,
God didn't bless this man. It's all good.
In terms of influencers, you're really looking at, doing some research, going into some Facebook groups and finding some people that are, getting a lot of interactions. So do your homework in terms of these influencers, but like small to medium-sized influencers, 5 or 10. And then, maybe do an unboxing, maybe do, have each one maybe do a little bit different type of review or posting to see what kind of works, right? You could maybe get 10, have 3 do their posts on the first week, and out of those 3 have a different style for each one, right? Have one doing an unboxing, have one doing just like talking about it, maybe showing it how it works, maybe do another one with like a lifestyle type setup, and then see which one seems to resonate the most. And then go back the next week and go to the next 3 and try it and maybe focus more effort on, the type of content that worked better, or test all 3 again and see which one works. And then by the 3rd time, you'll know, okay, the unboxing is the one that works the best. Then I'm going to get 3 more, but they're all going to do unboxing, right? So that's kind of a way I think that you can really gauge the effectiveness of those influencers.
Absolutely. And we've had people on even as early as last week of micro influencers and nano influencers, like people who are either following similar, brands and lifestyles. You can search for them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook pretty cheaply, and you can incentivize whether it's like paying a flat fee or obviously commissions of affiliate commissions and whatnot. Do you suggest a lot of like sellers set up some sort of like affiliate program, like as a brand, or like from the get-go, or how do you suggest they like set up their commissionable, entities, like not just paying flat because you never know if it's going to, you want them to drive results, obviously, but how do you suggest that?
So there's a few things to consider here, right? Like one of the big things to consider, and a lot of people don't realize this, is like, for example, when you're driving traffic from a platform like Google, right? If you're driving to your own website, it's going to be a lot harder and more expensive to get that traffic, right? Because there's something called DA, domain authority. And the higher domain authority, Google knows all this data in the back end. So they know that if you're driving traffic to Amazon, that cost per click is going to be way, way lower. You're going to get more, better placement on the paid search results, all these other things. So, as an example, using that, maybe getting an influencer to push people to your website might not work nearly as well as pushing them direct to Amazon. But then pushing them direct to Amazon, it's going to be hard to find affiliates that are going to push your untested product, right? Like if you have a product that sells super well on Amazon and it's something that you can then push out to to these other affiliates, then it's going to be a lot more effective.
Awesome. Before the top of the hour, I just wanted to get into some of the other projects we talked about, like spreading yourself too thin. But you, as a man of different hats, I should say, not just on Amazon. Yeah, exactly. San Francisco. We even have a call out. Rob also said, "Hey, rocking the Giants hat." So, a good call out from Rob. What you're working on a new project, and which is really cool. It's called Seller Support, and I was aware of it with one of the partners kind of you're working with as well. Maybe talk a little bit about that and what kind of that next, service that you're going to be providing is going to look like.
I'm really trying to pare down my what I'm working on, right? So Seller Support is a VA agency that we are spinning up, and it's going to be a lot different in terms of, a lot of people have not a lot of success with platforms like Fiverr, even online jobs, all these other platforms where there's not really any pre-vetting, right? It's kind of like the Wild West where you go in and you say, hey, I need this done. And you get inundated with people like, oh, I'm an expert at this. But then when they actually go to work for you, it's kind of wasted time and money. So that's kind of the big goal there, is to have much more control, moderation, and getting a lot more the kind of the cream of the crop in terms of the VAs. We're going to be very stringent in terms of, who we're going to allow in. And then once they're in, they're going to have to prove themselves continuously. And we are going to get the best people and make sure that we keep them.
Yeah, we made sure that went out in the description, because you guys are still working on it with other people to kind of make it into like a live service, correct? Because it's still kind of onboarding a lot more VAs and making sure you guys are starting off on the right foot. But you can actually learn about it, and I put that in the show notes as well. But sellersupport.net is where you want to go. So for VA help as well as the feature, who do they need to contact if they either want to learn about more of the service? Is that you? Is that who's that?
Sellersupport.net. Like I said, it's being launched, so the website's not super. There's not like 10 pages on it, but you can go there and apply as a seller. Because right now we're making sure that we get sellers through that are actually running a business. We don't want tire kickers in terms of, that's not going to help us get the service going and kind of really make sure that we're having a good offering. Go to sellersupport.net. Right now there's a form. You can just enter your information, and then we'll reach out to you. We're actually running a promotion when we launch where we're just charging $2 an hour, which is crazy cheap. But we want to show you guys up front that it's going to be a service that you're going to value and use a lot.
Absolutely, and we got a little love from YouTube as well. So did y'all? They love the idea. So obviously, another service that's helping Amazon sellers grow. You're not trying to stretch yourself too thin, but Andy, what was like before we kind of hop off at the top of the hour? What was 2020 like for you personally? And then did you learn anything that was kind of like, for you being in the Amazon space, it was different for a lot of people? What did you really take away from that and you're applying in this next year?
Yeah, one of the big things, honestly, is like, and I don't want to discourage people here, but what I figured out for myself is after a lot of reflection. Number one, we wanted to get the hell out of California as quickly as possible. That's the first thing that we decided on.
See ya.
Yeah. The next thing was, that my passion lies with software and then with helping sellers. So that's really kind of where I'm starting to pivot. Like I said in the beginning, I'm most likely going to sell my Amazon business, and maybe start a new one, just kind of like with a few products. Like my catalog now is like 800 SKUs. Yeah, I've been in the game for so long. We scaled really quickly.
You're an aggregator's, perfect dream.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm slowly scaling that out, and I'm really going to double down on the podcast, which we love to help, just like you're doing, help sellers without them having to pay for some $5,000 course. And then also, the software offerings that I think are going to bring a lot of value, especially, our concentration is the small to medium size sellers, the mom and pops. That's who I really like to help. People like me who, at one point was working a 9 to 5, not a real big fan of the job, and, able now to, before this podcast, I had to run and go pick up my dog at the, at the groomer, right?
Right.
But that's awesome. With my old job, I was, stuck in the tower for 10 hours a day. So, that's really where I want to see my life going.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on all the success thus far. We know we'll see you with other ventures down the road. You say you're not going to stretch yourself too thin. Make sure you take that advice, my man.
Yeah.
And that's why it's, that's hard. Right. We all get shiny object syndrome one time or another, and it's really hard to just be very disciplined and just stay true to what you know and what you're good at. It's always fun to dabble, right? But always make sure you're doing this for one reason or another. Save yourself time, money, effort, make your time more valuable and other assets. So, but I appreciate your time hopping on here. I know you got so much going on. Like you said, hey, I don't know what's next on your list of things to do. My wife just texted me. She's like, go make sure that the trash cans didn't blow away with the storm outside. So
right.
I got to go and do that.
So for us, the other thing is my wife's a real estate agent, and we're also doing a lot of real estate investing, and that's been a lot of fun. So that's kind of my side fun project,
Yeah. Are you guys traveling are you doing any events or anything like that this year? Like, is that kind of on the radar?
We're looking out for it for sure. I saw that ClickFunnels is doing an event. It's funny, when I moved to Idaho, I didn't even realize that this is the home of ClickFunnels. Their office is about 2 streets up from where we live.
That's convenient.
I drive by it all the time. Yeah, I see the ClickFunnels sign there all the time, and and there's a lot of tech companies and a lot of people moving out here. So it's a cool place to be.
Awesome. We'll have to put that on the list of places to travel when we're able to travel again. So
I'll buy you your beer.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We'll all be in the same room at some point. Just maybe sooner than later. We'll never know. But hey, Andy, thanks so much for hopping on, man. For your podcast, and also where people can learn and talk with you more, where do they need to go to connect with you?
So I'm one of those crazy people who actually gives out their email address. You can just get me, Andy@sellerseo.com. LinkedIn, you can find me, just search my name. Probably the first one to show up. I'm pretty sure I have a fairly large following there. And then I'm on all the social channels, so feel free to reach out there.
Awesome. Well, congrats again on all the success. Good luck with the future rollouts of businesses, and I'm sure we'll have you back again at some time soon. So thanks so much for hopping on Crossover Commerce.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. Have a good one, everyone.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
All right. Take care.
Awesome. That was Andy Arnott of Seller SEO. Thank you so much for hopping on again today. Again, we go live every day this week. So you want to make sure you hit that notification bell. If you haven't already, go ahead and do that right now. Hit in the bottom right-hand corner and subscribe to our channels. Make sure you follow, like, and share this content as well. It's just an action-packed episode of Crossover Commerce. Again, you don't want to miss a single episode. We're going live again tomorrow, which is Thursday in my part of the world, and then on Friday as well. All different kinds of content. We're going to talk about localization tomorrow with an expert in the field in the Middle East. And then on Friday, we're going to be talking more about Amazon ads and using PPC in different ways and capacities. So I'm really excited about the flow of this week and how we're going. So you don't want to miss a single episode. Again, subscribe to our channels. Go ahead and rate us. on all the podcast channels, as well as new episodes become available on audio format. You'll be notified there as well. I'm Ryan Kramer, the host of this show, Crossover Commerce. Go ahead and check out PingPong Payments. If you haven't heard of us, go ahead and click on that link below to go ahead and take exclusive advantage of the offer. The first month of your international FX is free when you click and sign up for free today. Save money when you do international payments with PingPong, sending or receiving, no matter where you are in the world. I'm Ryan Kramer, again, with Crossover Commerce. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. Have a good day and be safe.